And now it's time for another edition of What Would Jello Do? The Great Betrayal, Part 2. I am the great and powerful Coelacanth. The rush to the airport would have happened no matter when we pulled out. Staying longer would have escalated conflict with the Taliban. Wrong on both counts. Intentional disinformation on both counts by a stubborn guy who won't admit he's wrong. It didn't have to happen this way. The choice was not between leaving August 31st, citing Trump's deal with the Taliban, September 1st wouldn't do, or the whole thing was going to escalate. Trump's deadline was in May. We already changed it. We could have easily changed it again. After all, one female politician from Afghanistan, Fawzia Koofi, says the peace talks ongoing in Doha and Qatar were within a month of hammering out a relatively peaceful agreement for the transfer of power. We were there, the Afghan government was there, the Taliban was there, and then Biden just pulled the plug on the whole thing. August 31st, that's it. According to the Washington Post, the Taliban even offered to let us run security in Kabul to get everybody out, and we refused. August 15th, President Ashraf Ghani, who supposedly was our guy, leaves. And then Taliban co-founder Abdul Ghani Baradar, I hope I pronounced that right, calls a meeting with our general, Frank McKenzie, in Doha. The government has fled. Can you help us out? We're not ready to run Kabul yet. McKenzie, well, I guess I gotta ask the boss. Biden slams the door on General McKenzie. No. We're going out August 31st. We don't care what else happens, I guess. Blowing up the Doha talks when we could have negotiated this larger rescue presence that way without violating Trump's deal at all. We could have secured the so-called green zone where all the Western embassies are and then made a corridor from there to the Kabul airport. And of course, if we hadn't put out so quick, we would still have Bagram Airport, Kandahar, you name it. Another Washington Post columnist who I normally don't agree with, Mark Thiessen, he said, this is a dereliction of duty unlike we have seen in modern times. I hate to say it, but I kind of have to agree. I'm glad we're out, but not this way. It's not that the whole Afghan government just cut and run. We did too. They cut and run because we cut and run. Imagine how much less insane this would be if we started the big civilian withdrawals as soon as Biden took office and we were still very much in control of all those bases and airdrops, over 200 of them, all over the country. Yeah, we could have been using those right now and saved a lot of our military equipment we lost at the same time. You can't blame Trump for the way this was done. This is Biden's. Yeah. The outsourcing of Kabul and security, just like we outsourced too much of this war to private contractors. Well, we'll just outsource it to the Taliban. Just another private contractor. That was our choice. Pass the buck, wash our hands. And just abandoning all the people who we told we were staying, and they believed us. The State Department was even still advertising job openings in Kabul right before the evacuation started. And suddenly, one day to leave, Taliban promised not to enter Kabul, but then they did because all the cops had fled their posts. That was their excuse. Plus, we didn't provide security when they asked us to, meaning all those horrible scenes at the airport, people so desperate you could see them falling off the airplane when they tried to get out and landing, which I kind of thought, my God, is that going to be us if Trump gets another term? And he might, because this was blown so badly. Bailed on Bagram Airport, our big one just outside of Kabul, in the middle of the night so that the locals who worked there woke up and we were gone. Poof, like it was the rapture or something. Kunduz Airport, that's way in another part of the region of Afghanistan, we gave the Taliban somewhere around 100 abandoned Humvees and Max Pro MRAPs, and several flying U.S. Scan Eagle drones. MRAP is mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle, by the way, costing $500,000 to $1 million a piece. I think we got some graft going on there too, ladies and gentlemen, because you also saw them in Ferguson, Missouri. Taliban are also reported to have gotten 20 A-29 Tucano attack planes from the Kandahar airport. And the military in Kabul, we handed these lists to the Taliban. Here, these are the people we want to make sure we can get out. Will you not go after them? Oh, sure we won't. Oh, yes, we will. Here's the list of everybody we can hunt down and kill first. How dumb can you be? So now the Taliban, because we left so quickly, they've got data on all these people and more in Afghanistan. Estimated 2,000 armored vehicles, Humvees and shit from all over the country. Russians are claiming they also captured 100 helicopters. They've got howitzers, rocket launchers, machine guns, sniper rifles, flak jackets. Estimated to be as much as $28 million of, million or billion? $1 billion of our tax money in free stuff. Did we leave all this behind intentionally so that the military-industrial complex would have to fill $28 billion of reorders to replenish our own supply? We could have at least taken key Humvee and chopper parts out so that they couldn't go anywhere and immediately be used against civilians and against us. What happens to the women now? What happens to women? Did we ever really care that much at the blob level about the women at all? Progress was made. One way to turn around medieval, backward, third world countries is to educate the girls. That's been proven over and over and over again. Are they going to get killed for going to school now? Even the little ones? All those places Central Asia Institute put up and stuff, what happens to them? Till a few days ago, there was a higher percentage of women in the Afghan parliament than there was in our own Congress. How many of them were able to get out? And the female mayor of one Afghan city who's survived repeated assassination attempts finally threw up her hands and said on camera, I'm just not going to leave. I'm waiting for the Taliban to come and kill me. That's what's happened here. Remember that Time magazine cover with the woman with her nose cut off that looked so scary? I was going to use it as a fake Halloween mask just to drive home a point with sick humor about how we used Afghan women's suffering as a moral shield to justify staying in the war. After all, she got mutilated by that for leaving an arranged marriage and getting away from what was probably a really abusive husband. And that was going on all over the country and still does even under our watch. That's how weak that Afghan government ever was. And let's not forget our old buddy Hamid Karzai, who we installed as president of Afghanistan, rammed through a law making it legal for husbands to rape and beat their wives. That's who we were supporting, claiming we were supporting women. Meanwhile, here was the CIA and others paying for intel on the Taliban and paying off warlords to join us with Viagra pills, enabling old men to go back to raping their wives. And as far as justifying protecting women for a reason for being in Afghanistan goes, what leg do we have to stand on after what just went down in Texas with that backdoor pocket ruling, I guess they called it, by the Supreme Court, saying now you can't even get an abortion in Texas if your old man rapes you, or your arranged husband rapes you, or somebody jumps you and rapes you, or something like that. You can't get an abortion anymore. And vigilantes can hunt down anybody who helped you and get a bounty because they turn you in. That's the Christian Taliban right there. Same deal. Oh, and by the way, vaccines do work. Vaccines work. Why do I say this now? Because worldwide, thanks to the vaccine, we have been that close to wiping out polio. Extinct. Except for guess where? Those back mountains of Pakistan bordering Afghanistan, where the Afghan army pulled out years ago because they don't even want to try to control the place. And people who went in there trying to inoculate the last remaining areas where people were coming down with polio, they were getting killed for trying to vaccinate a population against polio. And guess who did the killing? The Taliban. Yeah, there's a Taliban in Pakistan too, and always has been, with as much as 15% support from the overall Pakistani population. 20 years, trillions of dollars turned to dust in a week. 170,000 people killed, maybe even 250,000 Afghans. 66,000 of military, police. We're surprised. Oh, the Afghan army, they ran right out of their uniforms. They collapsed so fast. We had 350,000 of ours, 80,000 Taliban, and still they ran away. Why? Survival, that's why. It was always a paper army anyway. They had a phrase for this back when the Taliban were stunned by how many of their soldiers were defecting to us in the Northern Alliance overnight. The phrase was, we turned our turbans. We turned our turbans. Because in Afghanistan, and for that matter Iraq, it's not a central government, it's all tribal, clans. There's a multitude of languages, although it's mainly Pashto and Dari and all kinds of other peoples, and that's who they listen to, the chieftains, the clans, the tribes. And those chiefs, they know their responsibility is to protect their followers, the people they're in charge of and responsible for. Their job is to make sure their people survive, which means they back the winning horse, turn their turbans. And Afghan troops quit because the rug was yanked out from under them. Afghans never believed in a central government they never felt was theirs in the first place. Just a turn of the turbans that you can easily turn back. President Ghani, the supposed democratically elected leader we thought we were supporting, he got 920,000 votes in a country of 38 million people. Less than 2.5% of the total vote. Less than 5% of the people even voted at all. That's how much of a mandate and support he really had. And privately, of course, the sniping was, the Afghan security forces, we keep shoveling all this money year after year into incompetent, unmotivated, at least it's a paycheck, poorly trained, and riddled with deserters, infiltrators, and above all, corruption. Estimated desertion rate was 30%, where people would run off with these nice new weapons, and if they didn't go back to the Taliban, they'd form their own private little checkpoints along the roads and shake people down for money along the way. Hekmat Karzai, Hamid Karzai's cousin, had a great phrase for this. It became a self-licking ice cream fantasy. Ghani and Karzai just kept stealing tons and tons of money, ran off with it while the getting was good, and now, finally, back roars the Taliban, like they probably were going to do anyway as soon as we turned tail and went to Iraq. So far, they're like, we are not monsters. We will let women go to school, but not hold a job, as it turns out. We are just waiting for all that foreign aid we need. Outside of Kabul, they're totally monsters, and inside of Kabul too. The Taliban can't control a lot of these people. Warlords and others who turn turbans all the time. In other words, they can't even control the Taliban. There's reports of door-to-door searches going on even in Kabul. People surrender in the north and they're executed on the spot. They even dragged a folk singer, Fawad Andarabi, out of his house and killed him in Kandahar province already for the crime of playing music when music is now banned again. They've banned music, they've banned radio, they've banned women's voices on TV in some of these places. Already reports of forced marriages to marauding soldiers, and women can't go to work. How long before we do get the burqas back and chopping off people's hands, chopping off people's heads to a stadium-sized audience, destroying art, painting over the heads and rear ends of animals in old paintings because they're obscene? Remember, they even banned kite flying, which was one of the national passions in Afghanistan. You could do on a cheap, even if you're really poor out in the desert or something. What are we supposed to do, Mullah Omar, if you won't even let us fly kites anymore? Look at flowers. Yeah, that's what's coming back. And they're already, that horrible phrase is coming back again when they look at us and how we handled that and pulled out the rug out from under everybody with practically no real solid warning. They call it the Great Betrayal. And the Afghans and everybody in that part of the world, when we say we're their friend, they always remember great betrayals.